This is Bless Radio, and it's 6 p.m. UK time. And this is the spiritual discussion program. I'm Saad in Southeast London, and very soon my colleague Gregory is going to be joining us. The spiritual discussion program, our aim is to introduce you to the knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uprushing. And every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic for discussion tonight is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. Gregory, you are with us now. Welcome. How are you, and how is the weather where you are?
It's fine, and it is chilly.
Chilly. Okay, you sound like as if you're in a faraway place. So just if you can come a bit closer to the mic, that'll be good.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome. So I am in Southeast London in Bromley, and here the weather has been a little bit colder, not chilly, I won't call it chilly, but overcast. And so yes, but I think the cold spell is now about to start tomorrow. And also, I want to wish happy Diwali to all people who are celebrating. That's it's a Hindu festival mainly, but also celebrated by the Jains and the Sikhs. So it's an Indian festival, and it means Festival of the Lights. And also it represents many things, but I don't want to go into all that just yet. But yes, happy Diwali to all those who are celebrating. Now, as I said, the topic tonight is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. And I want to, if you wish to take part in the show with any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions and comments. And also, for the first time, we have invited people from, let's say, a new area around the world. So we have contacted people in Germany, in Uganda, and in Ethiopia to notify them of this radio show. So if you're joining us for the first time, I welcome you. What I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message, in the light of truth, by Uprushing, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining, combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic that we're discussing tonight is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. The sins of the fathers fall upon the children. And just to give a bit of background to that, that is coming from, so this is at least, one is from Greek mythology. There was, apologies for that. Yeah, one is from Greek mythology, where there's a playwright, Euripides, who is said to have said that the gods visit upon the fathers. The gods visit the sins of the fathers upon the children. I have not been able to find any play or anything else to say that. It's just something that Google told me. And then we have another similar quote in the Bible from Exodus, where we are told, this is paraphrasing now, that God visits the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generation. So we are going to explore that tonight. And if you wish to join in with any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. And if you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in your questions or comments. Now, I always like to look up the meaning of the words in the topic in the dictionary. And so the first key word we have, just to say that the topic again, is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. So the first key word is sin. And there are 2 meanings given in the dictionary. The first one, an immoral act considered to be a transgression against divine law. And they give an example: a sin in the eyes of God. Gregory, just I want to ask you, how good is this definition for our discussion?
Well, thanks for this particular question. It looks very remote because in this forum, the basis, the addresses are general. So, from the, the
Apologies.
perspective of general discussions, it would be good to bring it home so many can separate that which sounds religious from that which they can easily identify with.
Thanks for that, Gregory. Thanks for clarifying uh, that, yes, the word sin, it does, uh, let's say, very openly, or suggestion of the word sin is something religious. And in our discussions, we are concerning, we always say, with the laws of nature or the laws of creation, which, let's say, are not exclusive to religion or anything. It's universal. It's not like that. Oh, one religion says this and another one says that, and now you have either a contradiction or not clarity. So everybody knows, for example, there is gravity. So that is a law, a natural law. So, and everything, if you look at from nature, it is not, let's say, there should be quite not any argument about it that this is natural or not, or it's coming from nature or not. So that's how we look at the questions. So, in that sense, Gregory, let me move to the next definition of the word sin and see if that how good that is again for our discussion. So that one, the second meaning given in the dictionary for the word sin, it says an act regarded as a serious or regrettable fault, offense, or omission. So let me repeat that: an act regarded as a serious or regrettable fault, offense, or omission. Is that any relevance for us in our discussion, Gregory?
That is a good pointer. If one combines the first and the second, one finds that a transgression which violates the laws of nature, the laws of creation through which the individual himself or herself came into existence, that's one may refer to as a sin. For subsequently, there will be some adverse effect in that transaction.
Thank you for that. Uh, Let me continue. The next keyword I've got is father. And I think in a way this is already obvious, but let's see what the dictionary says. It says, and again, it gives two meanings. Actually, there's more than two meanings. Uh, Let me just go with them. The first one, a man in relation to his child or children. So, Gregory, is that good for our discussion there?
That is also a pointer, but very narrow.
Okay. Then in that case, I will go through the others. So then it says fathers, the plural of father, and it says the meaning of that is ancestors. So again, is that there's quite a list, if I'm honest here, Gregory, but I'll let me go through the list. So ancestors, is that relevant?
Well, you'll find that because of the way many people reflect or think. That's the real impression that the word father most of the time is not considered. It's many only consider an earthly relationship of the father that makes provision and provides security for its family. There is no deeper consideration of what fatherhood is. And the father which is referred to is tied to the earthly impressions of what fatherhood is. Whereas fatherhood or father has deeper implications which are above the narrow expressions which are attached to fatherhood.
Okay. What I'm going to do now, because as you just said that this concept of father or fatherhood, it's a bigger. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting all. Sorry, I'm getting these alarm sound. Apologies. Um, what I'm going to do, because as you have said correctly, the word father can represent like a bigger concept than the simple, let's say, biological meaning of father and child. Um, so let's look at the other ones that are again in the dictionary, because there really are many there. So one of them is an important male figure in the origin or early history of something. So we could say somebody's a father of physics. I think that's the way they're talking there. Uh, Let me just go through all of them. A man who provides care and protection. So that doesn't have to be directly your father, right? That could be any person uh, who's providing that. And in fact, in this case, we're talking about a man. So, yeah, did you want to say something, Gregory?
I think that stands nearest to what fatherhood is.
Okay, okay. Let me then stop on that one. Let's not go too far. Okay, the next keyword is fall. And again, I've got about three meanings here. Um, and when I look at them, I'm thinking they are just too literal. So rather than um, and maybe I should, don't want to use the word metaphorical, but it's a picture the word fall is giving rather than the literal meaning, like falling from a higher to a lower level. That's what the first definition says. Um, that's not what we mean on this one. So let me move on. Um, Pass into a specified state or situation or position. What do you say to that one, Gregory?
Again, that is a fairly good pointer. But again, until we take the whole expression, we cannot take the different parts to represent what the whole expression is going to mean.
Okay, okay. Well, I did look at that as well. So yes, thank you for bringing that out. Let me just continue with the last couple of words now. The next word is upon, which is in the dictionary, it says more formal term for on, especially in abstract senses. So, so they're just saying upon is on. Well, uh, I guess yes, that makes sense. Let me carry on, Gregory, to the next key word there, children. Here it says for children, a young human being below the age of puberty or below the legal age of majority. And then the late, yeah, there's quite a few, like five meanings given, Gregory. So let me get your comment on that. A young human being below the age of puberty or below the legal age of majority. So is that referring
That's
to?
acceptable, but that is not um, does not explain precisely what we are seeking after.
Yes. So let me say the second one, which is much better. It says a son or a daughter of any age. So that one, it doesn't have, you don't have to be a child age to be a children. You can be a son or a daughter. So is that better one?
Okay, these are pointers, but you don't give um, some key things that we would like to see when talking about children.
Okay. I'm not going to read out the other ones. I'm just saying that it's better we get, let's say, get to the point of what we really want to say. So let me go to the full, the phrase in the topic is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. And so, and then let's clarify that, Gregory. We are saying the fathers have committed sin, and the, let's say, the consequence of that sin, it hits upon the children, which when I see that word children, I think of their children, but it doesn't mean it can stop at those children, immediate children. It could be the children of the children as well. It could continue further than that. That's what it applies to me. Uh,
Well, what one must stress here, the concept of children, those who are capable of learning, those whose um, are at a stage where they still need to develop. So you will find that because they still need to develop, they still need to experience to strengthen themselves, to become more matured, they are liable to picking up impressions which float around. So children are malleable. That's the word children or child is mentioned. That does not that has nothing to do as such with age, but has everything to do with the maturity which the individual has acquired so far. So, with that, one comes to start building up a picture where that you have an individual who is malleable, who can be influenced, an individual that is becoming conscious and need to develop to attain maturity. And that being the age where purity, simplicity is tied with these ones who have not yet been influenced.
Thank you for that explanation there about the concept of children there, Gregory. So you're saying the children are, I don't want to use the word people, are individuals who are, let's say, developing, learning, as you say, and maturing, and thus they are not mature. Does that now mean, Gregory, that the fathers are mature? Because you can also have uh, adults who don't act like mature sometimes. So, it's now, I know I don't want to complicate too much, but because that's, so what are you, do you say that fathers are mature then in this case? In this, at least in the concept, in this, the concept of the topic?
With the expression fatherhood, that's already presents a responsibility on whoever takes that role of fatherhood. And that being the case, a certain maturity is attached to it. A certain maturity in accordance with the laws of creation. Otherwise, you would not call them father, because that's task of making provisions, of caring, and also of protecting. That task is there, is assigned to father. So when one considers that, one can already see that those who have attained maturity or who are assumed to have attained maturity, those are the ones that should be leading through their activities, through their examples, to the ones who are just maturing. The ones who are just maturing, who initially are without any responsibilities. You wouldn't tie responsibilities to a 2-year-old or to a 1-year-old child, because that child still has to experience.
Thank you for that, again, clarification there. There's another concept or understanding up phrase, the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. How I take that, what it could mean then, is that, so the fathers, let's call it the generation, first generation, for the sake of not causing confusion, has committed some sin. So that's a group of people, really. And the consequence of that sin, it might hit, of course, on those first generation. But the implication in this phrase is it falls on, let's say, the third or fourth generation, because that's in one of the phrase quotes in the Bible. It's saying the sins of the fathers falling on the third or the fourth generation. So it's not even about somebody is a child or not. It's the sin of one group of people doesn't hit on that group, or at least that's what it is implied. Instead it hits the descendants. So that is not a question about. So when we say children, in that sense, we're talking about the descendants rather than the level of maturity or so on. So that is, I think, what is being said in this quote. That something is happening, that the parents or grandparents or whatever the previous generation did, let's say like that, and the consequence of whatever they did, it doesn't have to be sin, but in this particular context, it is being talking about sin, falls in somehow later into the, as I say, third or fourth generation of descendants. I think the word children can be misleading in this phrase, because it's not the children who are going to suffer as such. That's not, I don't think, what is meant. It's meant as the next generations that are coming is suffering. So let me give an example of this quickly. So we know long time ago, the Jews were in slavery in Egypt. And it took 300 years before Moses came to free them. So so let's say the generation that existed before Moses was there, they have also been in slavery. And their next generation, all this generation of 300 years had been in slavery. And one might ask, okay, how did that all this generation fell into the slavery for so long? Did they all sin? Did the first generation that was in slavery sin? And that sin was so grave that the next generation that came followed them, they now suffered because of the actions of whatever the parents or grandparents or whatever the generation happened to be before. So that's what I think this quote is about. Something a previous generation did, and the suffering is falling onto the later generation. It's not so much about father and son or daughter, more about the generation. So that is what I believe. I think this is what is saying here in this quote. So, Gregory, it doesn't sound fair if that is really the right. That let's say the first generation did the sin, but it is the following generation that are paying the price of the first generation. So how can we make sense of that?
We can make sense of these things because the expressions have been interpreted very wrongly. What fatherhood did or did not do, these have their consequences. Purposely one said what they did or what they did not do. What they did not do could be negligence. With negligence, in such a way that that's which they should have impacted on those who, as children, are malleable, without guile, who should be well guided, but they ignored it. Now, one can already see that such negligence has an impact on the society. These impacts is devastating. One doesn't even need to consider generations for such negligence, which should have helped in molding the individual for the sake of strong upbuilding within the community, within the society. That has been ignored. Now, the younger ones who are malleable, who are supposed to be advised, and that advice was not given, that means the possibility is there that these younger ones, children, will miss their ways, will make so many mistakes along the line. So we have that sin of negligence having a consequential impact on the younger ones. These younger ones who look up to fatherhood in trust, in trust for guidance. So there's no need to go back to generations, but one can already see that the error which has accrued due to negligence has an impact on the younger ones who look up trustfully to fatherhood, to the elders, and that being the case, the returns are gradually immediate and some are immediate. So that expression must be taken at a higher level. Many who have responsibilities of protection of making provisions for those who are just learning, who are not yet matured, that which they need to pass on to them, they did not. There are the other scenarios where what is passed on to the younger ones are fallacies, are filled with errors, because you'll find that that which has been passed on are not in accordance with the laws of nature, of creation, as to strengthen these children, which are the younger ones, who look up trustfully, who are looking up for guidance, in the sense that they have come into this world through the cooperation of fatherhood and motherhood, and in their expectations that trust has arisen in them, that they will be fully protected, having been here first, knowing or assuming that they know what the challenges are. It's only a matter of showing the younger ones, children, how to move, how to adjust aright here on earth. If, however, the fathers have failed in one way or the other, these have an impact on the children who look up to them for guidance. It is that failure which fatherhood is supposed to eliminate through their knowledge, because after all, they came here first before the children. That is what that expression, having failed in their task, in their duties, these have an adverse impact on those who look up to them filled with trust. That is what that expression is talking about.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for clarifying this concept of the sins of the fathers falling upon the children. That was very important to have this clarification, because, and that is why I like to use the dictionary to look up the words in the topic. But as you pointed out already, we need to look at the whole, all the words together in the topic to get the right conception of what this topic is meant to, we're talking about. Even when we do that, people can get a different end of the stick, as they say, wrong end of the stick, about what you're thinking, what you're talking about, and the other person who you're talking to or with, can have a completely different idea of that same phrase that is being talked about. And now, where we have just reached now, in this point of the discussion, was far different from the way you have now given us this meaning of this conception, which now makes sense than before. It was didn't make sense, let's say, or it seemed not right somehow, because everybody wants to have justice, and if something looks like injustice, it's not really, you're not going to accept that. But now the way you have presented it, that the sins of the fathers being falling onto the children are really is what they have passed on, you could say, to the children through their wrong understanding or even negligence, and that has led to the children or the next generation, because we don't have to necessarily call them children. The next generation is now misled, maybe not deliberately, but let's say misdirected, knowingly or unknowingly, and that has a very big impact, or let's say a very negative or terrible impact for the next generation and for the other future generations after that. Because one, if what let's say the first generation passed to the second one, and that will pass on to the third one and continue, unless somebody at one point wakes up and says, wait a minute, this doesn't really look right. So that clarification you just made is really very important. So thank you for that. Let me just let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Akrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. The sins of the fathers fall upon the children. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. If you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show tonight, which is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. So I'll just repeat that. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space, Grail Message, space, the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. And after the show, when we close at 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to the recording of the show, also on YouTube, with typing exactly the same words as I mentioned in the search box. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number one there. Excuse me. Gregory, I've had while we've been talking, there's a comment from a listener um, who's giving, let's say, yeah, it's a comment really. And I'm going to use that for further question, but let me say what the listener sent. They say, no, sir. Okay, let me not say. The sins, I'll just say that his real comment. The sins of a father cannot be upon his children because every man stands on his or her own, and man must then patiently bear the final effect of every one of his decisions. He cannot and must not feel this to be unjust, for in the mind final manifestation, it is always only what lay in his decision. It makes no difference if this decision was intended for someone else. I think this is a quote from the Grail Message, but here the person hasn't said that because I'm recognizing it very well. The final effect will strike only its originator. Very often, when the final effect strikes, the original decision has long since been forgotten by the author, whose present volition, and the Bible also says that uh, I can't read this. It doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to read that. So then I think this is the comment actually from the person himself. This can only occur when a child has had a bad present life. Only then can his karma manifest on him. That is a reincarnation. And I'm not going to read it because I think this is a little bit not making sense. So let me not go there. The English is not quite perfect. So let's not confuse people. So I think Gregory, just and listeners, that was the first part was a quote from a lecture about, you can say, how our fate works for each individual. And yes, as you can tell from natural justice, you only, what you sow, you shall reap. That's what Jesus told us. So what you sow, you shall reap, not somebody else. So that justice is always happening in a natural way. Even if you don't know what it was that you did, and you won't remember now what you did to cause the result of what you're going through right now. That might have happened, okay? And of course, there is something called reincarnation, where something could have happened from a previous life, or that you did something in a previous life, and the consequence of it is happening in the current life. So that can also be the case. And that is just clarifying that no, the father didn't, whatever your father sinned, it's not you are going to reap the sin of your father. That's not what this is. This phrase that we have used today, the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. That's not what we are saying here. That when you commit sin, you have to redeem your own sin, and what your father did, he need to redeem his own sin as well. Okay, so that need to be clear, and that is something different or separate from when your father, let's say, taught you or misdirected you, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and then you now uh, have to go through the consequence of that, even though you didn't ask to be misdirected. Of course, nobody wants to be misdirected, but that's what happened, okay? Because you can't control your father, and neither the father can control you in the sense of how you think and what, yes, they can, let's say, put you under some control, but they still can't, you're free to think at any situation, no matter what is around you. So, yeah. I hope although I said a long way there, I hope it has not been too confusing there. Gregory, did you want to say something on that?
I, well, from what you yourself read out, it seems that the picture which is being presented by the comments of that particular person, that person hasn't taken the context of the expression into the whole equation, because it's talking of fatherhood, and it's talking of children. So one should not make it personal. We're looking at the expressions, and gradually you build up and to make it clearer and clearer. So when such expressions are used, what it means becomes self-evident that that which fatherhood has done or left undone, the impact has an adverse effect on those who, as children, these are young ones without any guide, who are looking up in trust to those who are supposed to guide them. That is what is meant in this particular case. It has nothing to do with, my father has done this and therefore this, the impact is going to hit me. After all, it is he who has sinned. No, one has to rise above that and look at the statement itself and consider intuitively the imports of that particular scenario. And then it becomes very clear that that is the case. So, subsequently, that which is referred to in fatherhood must, in their activities, because so much responsibilities are delegated to them, they should take it very seriously. First, to strive aright, to understand what these responsibilities are. One of the simple examples, you imagine a country in which those who are supposed to help in healthcare, in teaching the younger generation on what healthcare should be, and they refuse to do that. What then happens subsequently? These are the questions which must be considered. Before too long, you will find that you have a scenario where the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you do not have enough medical personnel. Meanwhile, these are the people, the younger ones, who were looking up to the elders, whoever they are, in their policies to make sure we have good health care. The impact of their negligence and of some of the things which they have done, in all naturalness, has an impact on those who were looking up to them, full of trust that they will help us with their knowledge. The same thing goes with corruption nowadays, do with responsibility. And those who do not take responsibility seriously, that is where the call is. So when children are mentioned, it refers to those who still have that capability of absorbing and learning so as to help in the improvement of the community, like is being discussed, in the one for all and all for one.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for the picture you painted there. I want to read something, you could say quotes from the Bible, which are relevant to this topic discussion, and basically where this topic has come from. And there's a couple of quotes there from the Old Testament. Uh, the first one, because well, let me not comment on it yet. Let's read this out and see, what it says. The first one is from Exodus 20, verse 5. And just before I read it, I'm just thinking Exodus is when, if I'm correct, Gregory, if you can confirm this for me, is that when the Jews or Israelites were being leaving, and they're they had slavery under Egypt for hundreds of years, and was the Exodus when they were leaving Egypt? Is that what that represents? Because it's that's a clue that I'm sensing from it.
Of
Is that
course,
what?
the
Right.
movement
It is
away
that.
from
Okay.
Egypt.
So
Yeah.
that why I'm saying it's important for context. It's really important because you can write some words, like just like we were having from the beginning of this discussion. You like you said, Gregory, you are saying it from the way you see it. The same words, someone else is seeing reading the same word, and they're saying it something totally opposite of what you are saying. And if you don't have that context, very quickly, it's like you're talking on two different subjects. And of course, you won't agree. Not that you have to agree as such, but if you're it's talking on two different things which are not have any connection, so then what are we talking about? So, but and that's why it's so important. First, we need to know the words, what the words mean, and what is the context. So let's go forward. So this is from Exodus, which Gregory has confirmed for me, is when the Israelites had now left after slavery in Egypt from the Pharaoh, and they were going away from Egypt. That's called Exodus. So this is Exodus 20, verse 5. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Gregory, that's the reference. That's the quote here. I would say it's a very specific quote there. Um, would you like to say something about that quote?
Again, thanks for mentioning these things. There is the interpretation, which one may refer to as superficial, and such superficial interpretation may seem to satisfy human weaknesses. For that expression must be understood intuitively. When it is said, you shall not bow down, one must first consider very carefully that these departing Israelites or Jews bowed down to the Egyptians, which Egyptians have become so intellectual. All that they themselves would consider was that which is earthly. All that they considered was how to extract labor from those they claim they were better than. And they enslaved these people. In the first case, slavery is completely unnatural for the human personality because the human personality is granted the free will to make decision, to be or not to be. So when you have the scenario where others force some other people and as if banishes their free will, then you find that is very unnatural, and that being unnatural violates the laws of creation. It is the will, the intellectual will of these Egyptians that have subjugated these simple people and have made slaves out of them. In the first instance, the individual, you yourself must be a slave to your passions, to inflict slavery on others. With slavery, there is no freedom. So the Egyptians who impacted such wickedness and suffering on the people of Israel at that time, or the Israelites or the Jews, they themselves have become slaves to their passions. That is why they could not recognize that these people who were human personalities just like themselves did not deserve better. Therefore, when they had moved out, the people of Israel, it was made very clear to them that they themselves should not copy that which the Egyptians has dealt out to them, but must, however, through their intuitions, reach higher, higher beyond that which is earthly, higher to that which is noble, where alone, through that which is spiritual, they can make contact with the source of all power, the source of all knowledge in accordance with the laws of creation. After all, was it not that same power that liberated them from the bondage which they had been over millennia? It didn't stop there. If one were to follow before long, they were then granted the Ten Commandments. And that explains everything. For the gentle guidance from above, from the light, presented these to these simple people such that they will not fall into the same trap, but in their activities must liberate themselves and look up and beseech the Lord for continuous guidance. That is what that statement is referring to. Not to fall into that same trap which the Egyptians have made and had inflicted such punishment, such atrocities. But if they themselves are able to look up, they will ensure that that which leads to slavery is avoided.
Thanks again, Gregory, for this explanation. Um, I'm going to carry on with the quotes in a moment. Before I do that, I want to let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we are discussing tonight is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. The sins of the fathers fall upon the children. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, .com. And if you scroll down on the homepage, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, space, Grail Message, space, the topic for tonight, which is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. I'm going to repeat that. Go to youtube.com, type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, space, Grail Message, space, the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. And after the show ends at 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to the recording also on YouTube with exactly the same search words. And of course, you can also listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1, which is the number one again. Now, correctly, there's another quote from Exodus, but I'm not going to read that one out because in a way we'll be repeating ourselves. So let me go to something else, which sounds, let's say, more what we can understand easily. I'm so preempting it, but let me just, so this is in the Old Testament, the book is Ezekiel chapter 18, and I'm going to read the whole length of that. So that's Ezekiel chapter 18, and it's titled Individual Responsibility. The Lord spoke to me and said, "What is this proverb people keep repeating in the land of Israel? The parent ate the sour grapes, but the children got the sour taste. As surely as I am the living God, says the sovereign Lord, you will not repeat this proverb in Israel anymore. The life of every person belongs to me. The life of the parent as well as that of the child. The person who sins is the one who will die. Suppose there's a truly good man, righteous and honest. He doesn't worship idols of the Israelites or eat the sacrifices offered at forbidden shrines. He doesn't seduce another man's wife or have intercourse with a woman during her period. He doesn't cheat or rob anyone. He returns what a borrower gives him as security. He feeds the hungry and gives clothing to the naked. He doesn't lend money for profit. He refuses to do evil and gives an honest decision in any dispute. Such a man obeys my commands and carefully keeps my laws. He is righteous and he will live, says the sovereign Lord. Then suppose this man has a son who robs and kills, who does any of these things that that the father never did. He eats sacrifices offered at forbidden shrines, seduces other men's wives, he cheats the poor, he robs, he keeps what a borrower gives him as security. He goes to pagan shrines, worships disgusting idols, lends money for profit. Will he live? No, he will not. He has done all these disgusting things, and so he will die. He will be to blame for his own death. Now suppose this second man has a son. I'm just going to make this clear just in case somebody might not get it. So we have had one good man, and that good man has a son who is, let's say, done many evil things. And now that evil son has his own son. That's what the second man, what is being said here, just so that there's no confusion. Now suppose this second man has a son. He sees all the sins his father practiced, but does not follow his example. He doesn't worship the idols of the Israelites or eat the sacrifice offered at forbidden shrines. He doesn't seduce another man's wife or oppress anyone or rob anyone. He returns what a borrower gives him as security. He feeds the hungry and gives clothing to the naked. He refuses to do evil and doesn't lend money for profit. He keeps my laws and obeys my commands. He will not die because of his father's sins, but he will certainly live. His father, on the other hand, cheated and robbed and always did evil to everyone. And so he died because of the sins he himself had committed. But you ask, why shouldn't the son suffer because of his father's sins? The answer is that the son did what was right and good. He kept my laws and followed them carefully, and so he will certainly live. It is the one who sins who will die. A son is not to suffer because of his father's sins, nor a father because of his sins, because of the sins of his son. Good people will be rewarded for doing good, and evil people will suffer for the evil they do. If someone evil stops sinning and keeps my laws, if he does what is right and good, he will not die. He will certainly live. All his sins will be forgiven, and he will live, because he did what is right. Do you think I enjoy seeing evil people die? Asked the Sovereign Lord. No, I would rather see them repent and live. But if a righteous person stops doing good and starts doing all the evil, disgusting things that the evil people do, Will he go on living? No. None of the good he did will be remembered. He will die because of his unfaithfulness and his sins. But you say, what the Lord does isn't right. Listen to me, you Israelites. Do you think my way of doing things isn't right? It is your way that isn't right. When a righteous person stops doing good and starts doing evil and then dies, he dies because of the evil he has done. When someone's evil stops sinning and does what is right and good, he saves his life. He realizes what he's doing and stops sinning. So he will certainly not die, but go on living. And you Israelites say, what the Lord does isn't right. You think my way isn't right, do you? It is your way that isn't right. Now, I, the sovereign Lord, am telling you Israelites that I will judge each of you by what you have done. Turn away from all evil you are doing, and don't let your sin destroy you. Give up all the evil you have been doing, and get yourselves new minds and hearts. Why do you Israelites want to die? I don't want anyone to die, says the sovereign Lord. Turn away from your sins and live. That is from Ezekiel chapter 18, which is very, I must say, very, very clear. Uh, no, so Gregory, maybe you can help us. How did this confusion or misinterpretation of this phrase? I mean, in this chapter, the Lord God is saying, do not use this phrase that the children inherit the sin of the fathers. I'm using my word now. He wants that phrase to be gone.
In
So,
the first case, it is wrong to say the first statement, which is the topic of the discussion, means that the children inherited the sins of the father. That did not occur at all. He said it has an impact. It falls. Something falls on you. Does it mean that you inherited it? Something falls upon you. Does it mean you inherited it? It is the wrong view, the wrong interpretation that has caused all these problems. So when you have people who hold a very wrong interpretation, that inner attitude being preserved, then you have such conundrum that people have exhibited. Even the speech of Ezekiel, many of these are still taken wrongly. However, there are some key things. The key things there is that of solving. The power from on high comes from the source. The power of the light remains unique. Therefore, it is that power that individual human personalities need to exist. It is that same power that made it possible for them to come into existence at all. in coming into existence as unconscious human spirit germs, as unconscious spirit seed grains. That's why one may refer to them as children. Because the capacity, the capability of development is there. When death is referred to in the speech of Ezekiel, were they referring to earthly death or spiritual death? That which Ezekiel referred to was basically spiritual death, not earthly death. Therefore, you will find that most of these words, most of these expressions have been interpreted wrongly. When it is said, if you keep my laws, which laws are the laws of nature, the laws of creation, which laws hold here in the world of matter, here on earth, and also these laws which hold even when the human personality has departed the earth, you will find if these laws are kept, if they resonate with these laws, the effect will be that they will come to a maturity where subsequently they'll be able to arrive at their destination, the paradise of man, such that there they will live for all eternity. If, however, these laws are not kept, not only in one earth life, and also when the human spirit departs the earth, in the beyond, if these laws are still not kept, the effect will be that that human personality will be dragged deeper and deeper in accordance with the laws of gravitation, spiritual gravitation, and subsequently the human personality will be crushed. That is the time of the final judgment. In that particular case, that which has been crushed, the experiences and the form which the individual has cultivated, the human form, that will disintegrate to its initial form, which is like a seed grain. So, whenever these words are read, each personality must strive away for the narrowness, tying everything down to earthly activities alone, and considering that, oh, in the earthly activities, you're talking about taking over the wife of somebody, not doing that. In the beyond, that expression, wife, and taking over the wife of somebody, that is completely out of the question. In the beyond, do we think there is animals that we need to slaughter and eat to feed ourselves? So these are the things which each individual must consider very carefully. And when you have that words, expression are being passed on through the human personality, one should not tie it as such to the people of Israel or the Jews. For that which is in accordance with the will of the Almighty is meant for all peoples and not tied to the recognitions of a few persons. That which is of benefit to the human personality applies to all. So that statement which you read from Ezekiel, that passage, must be reread, but with the inner attitude which is in accordance with the laws of nature, with the laws of creation, such that the individual can have an intuitive picture of how these laws operate so as to permit the human personality to come to a maturity such that it becomes a useful tool in nature, in creation, and pleasing to Him who provided the opportunities, who provided the grace for it to come into existence and to mature in accordance with these laws so as to have eternal life back in paradise. That is what most of these readings are pointing to, and not the trivial things which one finds in everyday jealousy, taking of this person, stealing, and all that. In the beyond, can one ever talk of, oh, you've done work for me, and or someone has come to steal this, has taken your food? So we must have a different attitude when we examine these things. In fact, these statements must be weighed and examined in accordance with the living laws of nature, of creation. Then and only then will they make the right impression which is beneficial to the human personality. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you. I didn't realize that I was on mute. What I was saying, thank you, Gregory, for what you have said there. What you have been saying, when we read, for example, these words from Ezekiel, this one, chapter 18, for example, the way we read them, yes, one way you can take it literally, but that doesn't give you the real proper understanding. The only proper understanding is when you take it spiritually. So like when you were pointing out, even if it says it's talking about Israelites or Jews, well, in a way, that's where the scenario was taking place. However, it doesn't have to apply to them alone. It can apply to any human being. Because you can just switch the word Israelite to a human being, and then it will apply to you. It's nothing that it is exclusive for Israelites to know this, what is being said. The law, the divine law, is it for one people? Of course not. It applies to everyone. So it's just in the context of what was being said. But the main point, Gregory, what you've been highlighting here, we need to have a spiritual understanding. This show is called Spiritual Discussion Program. Yes, there's earthly events going on, but it needs to be in the context of spiritual understanding. That gives you the bigger picture of what is this means. Like, for example, you pointed about the death. You die. God is saying, you do evil, you will die. You do good, you will live. Well, if you just say that, take it only on the earthly thinking, oh, everybody will die. But that's not the one we're talking here. That's the spiritual death or spiritual life, which is not being pointed out directly. But if you take it literally, you will not. It will not make sense, because everybody knows we know we are going to die. But spiritually, you continue. You can continue to exist beyond the earthly death. So, yes. Before I continue any further, I want to let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. UK time to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abkrushi. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. The sins of the fathers fall upon the children. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00 44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And one other way to contact us is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space, Grail Message, space, the sin, which is the topic for tonight, the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. And after this show, you can listen to a recording of this show also on YouTube. Again, with the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space, Grail Message, space, the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are also broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, we've been talking about slavery in regards to the Jews in Egypt. Well, it of course is not exclusive for that time and in those to those people. It has been going on for centuries in all over the world. Now, there is a debate currently that because there has those people who were slaves, and obviously they're now free, but it caused quite a, okay, say, devastating effect on the economy of that peoples, and maybe even the mentality of those people who became free, which means they will become economically disadvantaged. And so there is a talk that maybe these countries who had slaves there before, uh, and who are disadvantaged, they should be paid reparations by the people who made them into slaves. So let's say, for example, Britain uh, running the Caribbean, having plantations in the Caribbean or wherever the things were, and the slaves are working there. And now these countries are, let's say, far behind in terms of economically, maybe more than just economically, uh, you know, because you can imagine the devastation that the people suffered. And so it is being said that there should be reparations being paid. I mean, and then if you think of this one, there are other scenarios. I don't want to go into all that now in those scenarios. You'll say, oh, okay, that's this case. What about this other one? And what about another third one? Uh, should all of these people, after centuries of being whatever suffering they went through because of some other country that dominated them, now they should the company that country that dominated, even the original people are not the same people. Well, when I say that, it's a different type of people there now. So should they now be paying these reparations? So that's the question, Gregory. Like we said, the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. Is it applicable like that? This is financial one, I know, talking about paying reparation for the current generation for the sins of the past.
Again and again, the
Sorry.
stress must be made. The sins of the fathers having an impact on the children. Most of the time, the way people reflect on it has been wrong, thinking that, okay, the children now have to pay for what their parents have done. No, that's not what was meant. What is meant is that that which the parents have done or left undone has an impact, all right? Most likely negative impact on those children who looked up to them full of trust. So that injury um, is there because of what had been done in the past. Now, there's the talk of reparations. Reparations to be paid by those who had enslaved others. To discuss it with justice, one must say that that would be fair if those people who participated in such have to pay the reparations. But you now have the scenario that those who participated actively and inflicted such punishment on others have since passed on. However, the justice which one may refer to as the justice that has arisen through the laws of nature or the laws of creation will ensure that each personality that participated will have to give an account of what they have done or left undone. Now, to inflict such punishment on the children of the parents, such in itself, when looked at from the earthly perspective, such would not be right, because it will be said, our fathers caused this devastation. We now have a different impression. If the impression we now have it is one for all and all for one, then that is a way forward. And when one considers the fluidity of these laws of nature, of creation, the justice that comes out of it makes it possible that that individual that participated actively in inflicting such pain and tortures on those who were looking up to it, that individual may be granted the grace subsequently of tasting of that which they themselves have sown in nature, in creation. That's in the one may refer to as the opportunity to do that lies in reincarnation. So one will find that there's a high probability that many of those who inflicted such have now reincarnated to test for themselves that which they have inflicted upon others. Such are the perfecter of the laws of creation that grants each person the opportunity first to come to a recognition of the effects of its former activities, learn from it, and sever themselves from it. When reparations are mentioned, basically it is financial gain many are talking about. But when you ask yourself, what financial gains do people want? Is it not better to cooperate with others in one for all and all for one, such that by working together, such misdeeds that were inflicted, such will never come up again? Such a basis where you have one for all and all for one, and not start considering I am black or I am white or I am blue or I am green, but recognizing that these are human personality. All human personalities have one goal. That goal to improve themselves, to mature, to become not only conscious, but self conscious by developing those talents which have been sown within it, such that they will come to maturity. How to go about it varies from one human personality to the other. That is why we have different nations. Some will say we are going this way, the other ones we are going the other way. However, one thing should become clear. In order to be able to come to full maturity here on earth, it must be one for all and all for one. Why is that so? Because each human personality needs to interact with others such that they can work hand in hand, just as you have in the case of music, where there are many keys, like in the organ or in the piano, where for harmony to arise, these notes have to be played besides the other, not one above the other, but besides the other. That is what has been lacking. And that is what precipitated slavery. Therefore, if human personalities wish to do that which is right, they must learn to work in harmony. Harmony is not achieved by one note alone, but by playing notes besides one for all and all for one, then full harmony will arise. That is the task of the human spirit, to attain to that, such that when that has been fully accomplished, he himself or herself will be able to advise others, will be able to direct others who are not as matured as himself or herself to take the right direction, so as not to waste time and energy on that which is not beneficial. So you will find in the support of one another, that is more of a compensation which has arisen out of recognition. Financial things, that money which you talk about, is very ephemeral. It doesn't really do much, because you will find that once money is put across, those who vociferate the most will collect this money for themselves, leaving out those who are also impacted. So it has been wrong to keep stressing on financial cooperation, whereas that which should be stressed will be the one for all and all for one. That scenario will ensure that no one is left behind, because all hands will be busy in upbuilding.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer about the reparations for slavery, or the possibility of having reparations for slavery. People think, oh, that is just, there was an injustice and there has to be a justice, and this is the process we can go about that injustice. But they're looking at a very narrow way, material, earthly money. And I also said that slavery would not have just damaged the person or people uh, financially, but more, let's say, psychologically, mentally, spiritually as well. What about the reparation for that? And as you said, well, the laws of creation take care of that. Uh, so it's not us human beings thinking that we have to work with the justice of the laws of creation. But the system that we are devising, it's a one-sided system, not thinking of the only one side, like the money. And what, like you say, you can have give the money, but maybe those people will waste again their money. I mean, again, I say again, they will, if they have not earned it, and somebody just dropped the money on their pocket. Apart from the ones who are clamoring for the money, the loudest, they get it. But even if it is given out, do they know how to use it properly? It's not simple as that. You have to earn it, and then you can spend it. So, and this case is only one example of maybe million such stories in this history of humanity. Okay, so everybody who's colonized will want the same thing, and before you know it, everything will all collapse. So that cannot happen. So we must always be aware of the real world. Now we just have only a few minutes toward coming to the end of the show, and I've got a couple of questions, but I know I can't, or maybe I can. I won't read something today. So one thing, Gregory, I would like to say, we've been talking about fathers and children, okay? But I don't want to leave out the mothers. So now in Islam, they are taught to, not only in Islam, but it is something special they said in Islam, that everyone is taught to respect their mother. And they're told, paradise lies under the feet of mothers. So that is, I'm sure people know that must be a spiritual point. So, Gregory, maybe you can help us with that. So when we are taught to respect our mother, and we are told that paradise lies under the feet of mothers, is there some special power the mother has? I don't. What does this statement mean?
Well, thank you again for this question. One will find that statements like this must be absorbed at a spiritual level. When you ask yourself, what do mothers do? It is mothers who, in their wombs, prepare the body which the spirit needs to use, and in that period they stay nearby, and then at the time of birth it is the mother who takes care of the children until they come to maturity. So there are two great things: the opportunities that mothers provide, the opportunities for maturity, the opportunities for experiencing here in the world of matter, in particular the earth.
Say confirm that in coming to this decision, the authorities in Birmingham took.
So, that being the case, you will find that just as creation has granted us the opportunities to mature and subsequently to become eternally conscious, mothers along the line have played their part in granting the human personality that body which it needs to use here on earth to mature. If, however, that opportunity is not realized and made use of in accordance with the will of the Lord Almighty, you will find that individual may return to its origin after death of the physical body, may return as an unconscious spirit gem. If, however, they make use of this particular opportunity again and again, then they will mature to that extent where they can go back to their origin now as a full-fledged human personality that has become self-conscious. Back in paradise, in their self-consciousness, they can now live consciously or self-consciously, eternally, where they themselves can be of support and use to those who have just set out for their journeys in the world of matter.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for that explanation. And I apologize for the background noise while Gregory was talking. Dear listeners, we've come to the end of the show tonight on the topic of the sins of the fathers fall upon the children. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion. It was really, I will say, quite a journey from how, let's say, we might have thought about what this topic means and what it really means. Now, we just have a few minutes, so what I would just ask or encourage the listeners to please go and get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself and examine it for yourself, so that what we have been sharing with you, that is our understanding. But the real one is when you see it with your own eyes, because that is the real one for you. What we say is our words, and of course, that is not the same as having your own experience. So we encourage you to do that. And if you wish to want to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. Apologies, I've got a sore throat, so I hope you can hear me. Now, Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing all listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic. Good night and God bless.